And yes, we are back at it again. Third episode of Season 1, Departure. At the beginning of the intro, we see Reg and Riko unconscious while submerging into deep waters. In Jungian psychology, water symbolizes the realm of the unconscious. I believe this emphasizes that the journey is not just about exploring the uncharted areas of the physical world, but also a psychological descent into the inner abyss of one's psyche, facing the dark and unexplored aspects of one's unconscious and overcoming them, so one can become who they could become. Just like in alchemy, the true goal isn't to turn the base metals into gold, but to make the alchemist himself golden in the process. The opening theme song talks about the duality of fear and longing. We touched on this duality in the previous video. This song doesn't reject the curses but embraces them. If it weren't for the dangers and the horrifying aspects of the abyss, its value would be diminished. Being blinded by longing and pushing recklessly is not the answer, and neither is being scared and not trying at all. True courage is to push forward with longing even though you're scared. It's the integration of both. EmperorShells are one of the most mentioned creatures in the story. Other than Liza's letter, Nanachi reads about them to Mitty as well. Unnoticed, the shooting stone leaves a trail which falls as red-hot iron rain. The ice-covered trees transform into clouds. In the gap of the sky, a big turtle with its neck stretched out is grouped by others, looking up at the golden sky. This passage is from Haryomari collection. The group actually reaches them in the 6th layer in volume 11. Nanachi remembers reading about them to Midi, so they named the location Emperor Midi, Cliff of Memories. The relic that Regs finds and is amazed by is actually called Princess Bosom. Nat thinks it's another relic called Rock Top at first, but once they take the relics for appraisal, the guy in charge tells him the real name and says it's a boob stone. Apparently it's as soft as a real one. Birthday death disease. At first, it really feels like Nat is messing with Reg just to scare him. But aside from that part about seeing yourself in the mirror, this strange phenomenon is real, and many people are dying on their birthdays in Earth. In episode 12, we see Kiwi is sick on his birthday. But interestingly, when Leader takes him outside Earth Island, his symptoms immediately vanish like he was never ill at all. As we see in the final scenes of Season 1, there are many Eternal Fortunes petals around Earth, symbolizing many deaths, and many people have evacuated the island. To find a solution, Leader heads to the 2nd layer to talk to Ozen. We see their conversation in volume 6. Ozen explains that it's probably the same phenomenon that caused the death of the praying skeletons. She says if you can't do anything about it, you just have to pray, right? Otherwise you have to abandon the abyss and run. She says the praying skeletons were people who didn't live, and she understands them, since she doesn't know any other way of living. In episode 4 of Season 2, there is a scene where Reg sees many Eternal Fortunes petals falling from above, along with the names of the deceased. This indicates that many people have died on the surface. Sarajo talks about this disease as well in chapter 67. She says it's called breath in the Haryomari collection, a hidden curse that reaps lives, the once every 2000 years mass extinction event. She also mentions the process is vulnerable to defective units, and those who are poorly formed may take a breath. Birthday death disease is related to the soul, which we'll discuss more deeply when we reach chapter 67. After living on the surface and observing everything carefully, Reg is faced with many important questions that he can't answer unless he descends into the unknown. The questions he asks himself are basically the same questions we ask ourselves: the meaning behind our creation, the reason we came into this world, and knowing what we truly are. Rough map of the abyss. Before we get into the layers, I need to point out a few details about this map. This symbol means sea, and this one is the symbol for forest. The crescent moon symbol means netherworld. We know this from the extras in volume 6. Shigi explains the layers of the abyss here. My first interpretation of the layers and the path to the bottom was that this is the path of growth, both mentally and physically, so you can become who you could become. The first layer of the abyss is called the edge of the abyss for obvious reasons, and I believe it symbolizes childhood. The second layer has two distinct sections, the forest of temptation and the inverted forest. One reaches here in their teenage years. This is the layer of temptation, and many teens fall into the traps of the abyss here. One is to follow the Amagiri leaves not to lose the way. The third layer, the Great Fault. After surviving the second layer and finding your path, you need to work hard. This is the beginning of adulthood, the silent, long-lasting, boring work. The fourth layer, Goblets of Giants. These goblets are based on a painting by Thomas Cole. After surviving the Great Fall and becoming successful, you're now among the giants of the Netherworld. One little mistake and you'll bleed from every hole of your body. This is the Middle Age stage, when one competes with other successful people, usually overpower. The fifth layer, the Sea of Corpses. There is actually a layer of skeletons in the Sea of Corpses. It is said souls return to the bottom of the netherworld, but they leave their bodies here. This is one's late adulthood, the time when you must learn to let go of all things you achieved and set your soul free. The sixth layer, the capital of the unreturned. This layer is beyond one's life. This is where people try to reach God, and all failed. We see the ruins of their civilizations here. There is no coming back after such an attempt. The mysterious seventh layer, which we don't know much about, the final Millstorm, where essence becomes the key to the gates of the netherworld. On the way, Riko says she'll send mail balloons to inform her friends about their journey, but Nat says the probability of a mail balloon reaching the surface from the third layer and deeper is really low. Then Riko says she'll send multiple ones so at least one might reach the surface. This is actually a smart idea. It's related to the idea of accumulation, which will be one of the main themes in the story. There is an important panel in the manga missing in the anime. They probably removed it because it's too soon for the audience to learn much about the accumulation of values. After hearing about the low probability of reaching the surface with a mail balloon, Rex says it must have been really hard to make the map of the abyss. Shigi explains if each one of the raiders floats up a soap bubble composed of their own lives, some bubbles will just happen to make it to the sky before bursting, and the droplets of those few are collected over mind-boggling like period of time and are then used as ink to create the map. We'll talk about accumulation in depth in future videos. Wharf Quarter District is going to be important too. Illegal cave raiders are going to matter in future arcs. We'll talk more about this place when we reach Surajo's arc. Riko also talks about an interesting idea while saying goodbye. The idea that even if they never see each other again, they are still connected by the abyss. It's probably done through the soul of the abyss. In chapter 67, we see that through the soul, people are connected to their close friends and relatives like a web. We'll talk about this when we reach chapter 67. After descending into darkness, the narrator talks about their journey.
And so the two head off into the chasm, from which even darkness cannot escape. For those who offer themselves to its whims, the abyss is said to provide all, life and death, curses and blessings. As their journey moves forward, they will be faced with many choices, and the outcome is just as likely to be determined by the great abyss itself as it is by those who dare challenge it.
One of the important points the narrator makes is that life offers both curses and blessings to those who challenge it. To become whole, one must integrate both. Then she talks about the fate of this journey. We discussed in the first episode whether Riko and Reg are descending because they chose to or because the abyss made them. I want to hear your answer for this problem, so please write it in the comments. Also, the first volume of the manga ends here, and the next episode starts in the second volume. The first arc ends with this episode as well, the arc of curiosity and longing. It was a day arc based on the structure Putsipageti figured out. She's made many interesting videos about Made in Abyss, so check them out. Based on her findings, the story has a cyclical structure that repeats with new themes and ideas. The first cycle is about the duality of curiosity and fear. Each cycle has two main arcs. First, the day arc, where we learn about a new concept and usually a new member joins the group. And then the night arc, where we encounter a white whistle and learn about a concept that contradicts the day arc's theme. Only when the group can learn and integrate those contradictory ideas, they can descend into the next cycle. For this day arc, the concept was curiosity, and Reg was the character who joined us. The night arc of this cycle is going to be the arc of fear. Please subscribe and ring the bell for the next episode.